Hi, everyone. Welcome to March the 2nd Bible reading. Today we are in Numbers chapter 11, and this is where the story gets a little bit interesting as the people of God are moving away from Sinai and they're heading to the promised land. And now they begin to complain again. So, Numbers chapter 11, soon the people began to complain about their hardship. And the Lord heard everything they said. I'd underline that. That's an important phrase. And the Lord heard everything they said. Now let's see how God feels about it. Then the Lord's anger blazed against them, and he sent a fire to rage among them, and he destroyed some of the people in the outskirts of the camp. Then the people screamed to Moses for help, and when he prayed to the Lord, the fire stopped. After that, the area was known as Taberah, which means the place of burning, because fire from the Lord had burned among them there. Then the foreign rabble who were traveling with the Israelites began to crave the good things of Egypt. And the people of Israel also began to complain. "Oh, for some meat," they exclaimed. "We remember the fish we used to eat for free in Egypt. And we had all the cucumbers, melons, leeks, onions, and garlic that we wanted. But now our appetites are gone. All we ever see is this manna." The manna looked some like small coriander seeds, and it was pale yellow like gum resin. The people would go out and gather it from the ground, and they made flour by grinding it with hand mills or pounding it into mortars, and then they boiled it in a pot and made it into flat cakes. And these cakes tasted like pastries baked with olive oil. The manna came down on the camp with the dew during the night. And Moses heard all the families standing in the doorways of their tents, whining, and the Lord became extremely angry. Moses was also very aggravated, and Moses said to the Lord, "Why are you treating me, your servant, so harshly? Have mercy on me. What did I do to deserve the burden of all these people? Did I give birth to them? Did I bring them into the world? Why did you tell me to carry them in my arms like a mother carries a nursing baby? How can I carry them to the land you swore to give their ancestors? Where am I supposed to get meat for all these people? They keep whining to me and saying, 'Give us meat to eat.' I can't carry all these people by myself. The load is far too heavy. If this is how you intend to treat me, just go ahead and kill me. Do me a favor and spare me this misery." Then the Lord said to Moses, "Gather before me 70 men who are recognized as elders and leaders of Israel. Bring them to the tabernacle to stand there with you. I will come down and talk to you there. I will take some of the Spirit that is upon you, and I will put the Spirit upon them also. They will bear the burden of the people along with you, so you will not have to carry it alone. And say to the people, 'Purify yourselves, for tomorrow you will have meat to eat. You are whining, and the Lord heard you when you cried, "Oh, for some meat. We were better off in Egypt.' Now the Lord will give you meat, and you will have to eat it. And it won't be just a day or two, or for 5 or 10 or even 20. You will eat it for a whole month until you gag and are sick of it. For you have rejected the Lord, who is here among you, and you have whined to him, saying, 'Why did we ever leave Egypt?'" I would underline again that statement, "For you have rejected the Lord." But Moses responded to the Lord, "There are 600,000 foot soldiers here with me, and yet you say I will give them meat for a whole month? Even if we butchered all our flocks and herds, would that satisfy them? Even if we caught all the fish in the sea, would that be enough?" And then the Lord said to Moses, "Has my arm lost its power? Now you will see whether or not my word comes true." So Moses went out and reported the Lord's words to the people. He gathered the 70 elders and stationed them around the tabernacle. And the Lord came down in the cloud and spoke to Moses. And then he gave the 70 elders the same spirit that was upon Moses. And when the spirit rested upon them, they prophesied. But this never happened again. 2 men, Eldad and Medad, had stayed behind in the camp, and they were listed among the elders, but they had not gone out to the tabernacle. Yet the spirit rested upon them as well, so they prophesied there in the camp. A young man ran and reported to Moses, Eldad and Medad are prophesying in the camp. Joshua the son of Nun, who had been Moses' assistant since his youth, protested, Moses, my master, make them stop. But Moses replied, are you jealous for my sake? I wish that all the Lord's people were prophets, and that the Lord would put his spirit upon them all. Then Moses returned to the camp with the elders of Israel. Now the Lord sent a wind that brought quail from the sea and let them fall all around the camp. For miles in every direction, there were quail flying about 3 feet above the ground. So the people went out and caught quail all that day and throughout the night and all the next day too. No one gathered less than 50 bushels. They spread the quail all around the camp to dry. But while they were gorging themselves on the meat, while it was still in their mouths, the anger of the Lord blazed against the people, and he struck them with a severe plague. So that place was called Kibroth-Hattaavah, which means graves of gluttony. Because there they buried the people who had craved meat from Egypt. From Kibroth-Hattaavah, the Israelites traveled to Hazareth, where they stayed for some time. Numbers 12. And while they were at Hazeroth, Miriam and Aaron criticized Moses because he had married a Cushite woman. And they said, has the Lord spoken only through Moses? Hasn't he spoken through us too? But the Lord heard them. Now Moses was very humble, more humble than any other person on earth. And so immediately the Lord called to Moses, Aaron, and Miriam and said, go out to the tabernacle, all 3 of you. So the 3 of them went to the tabernacle, and then the Lord descended in the pillar of cloud and stood at the entrance of the tabernacle. Aaron and Miriam, he called, and they stepped forward. And the Lord said to them, now listen to what I say. If there were prophets among you, I, the Lord, would reveal myself in visions. I would speak to them in dreams, but not with my servant Moses. Of all my house, he is the one I trust. I speak to him face to face, clearly and not in riddles. He sees the Lord as he is. So why were you not afraid to criticize my servant Moses? And the Lord was very angry with them, and he departed. And as the cloud moved from above the tabernacle, there stood Miriam, her skin as white as snow from leprosy. And when Aaron saw what had happened to her, he cried out to Moses, oh, my master, please don't punish us for this sin we have so foolishly committed. Don't let her be like a stillborn baby, already decayed at birth. So Moses cried out to the Lord, oh God, I beg you, please heal her. But the Lord said to Moses, if her father had done nothing more than spit in her face, wouldn't she be defiled for 7 days? So keep her outside the camp for 7 days, and after that she may be accepted back. So Miriam was kept outside the camp for 7 days, and the people waited until she was brought back before they traveled again. And then they left Hazareth and camped in the wilderness of Paran. Numbers 13. Now the Lord said to Moses, send out men to explore the land of Canaan, the land I'm giving to the Israelites. Send 1 leader from each of the 12 ancestral tribes. So Moses did as the Lord commanded him. He sent out 12 men, all tribal leaders of Israel, from their camp in the wilderness of Paran. These were the tribes and the names of their leaders. Tribe of Reuben, the leader Shemua, son of Zachar. Simeon, Shaphat, the son of Hori. Judah, Caleb, the son of Jephunneh. Issachar, Igal, the son of Joseph. Ephraim, Hoshea, the son of Nun. Benjamin, Palti, the son of Raphu. Zebulun, Gadiel, the son of Sodi. Manasseh, son of Joseph. Gadi, the son of Susi. Dan, Amiel, the son of Gamali. Asher, Sether, the son of Michael. Naphtali, Nabi, the son of Vovsi. Gad, Gaul, the son of Maki. These are the names of the men Moses sent out to explore the land. Moses called Hoshea, the son of Nun, by the name Joshua. Moses gave the men these instructions as he sent them out to explore the land. Go north through the Negev into the hill country. See what the land is like and find out whether the people living there are strong or weak, few or many. See what kind of land they live in. Is it good or bad? Do their towns have walls, or are they unprotected like open camps? Is the soil fertile or poor? Are there many trees? Do your best to bring back samples of the crops you see. It happened to be the season for harvesting the first ripe grapes. So they went up and explored the land from the wilderness of Zin as far as Rehob near Lebo Hamath. Going north, they passed through the Negev and arrived at Hebron, where Ahiman, Shishai, and Talmai, all descendants of Anak, lived. The ancient town of Hebron was founded 7 years before the Egyptian city of Zoan. When they came to the valley of Eshcol, they cut down a branch with a single cluster of grapes so large that it took 2 of them to carry it to carry it on a pole between them. They also brought back samples of the pomegranates and figs, and that place was called the Valley of Eshcol, which means cluster because of the cluster of grapes the Israelite men cut there. Verse 25. After exploring the land for 40 days, the men returned to Moses, Aaron, and the whole community of Israel at Kadesh in the wilderness of Paran. They reported to the whole community what they had seen and showed them the fruit they had taken from the land. This was their report to Moses. We entered the land you sent us to explore, and it is indeed a bountiful country, a land flowing with milk and honey. Here's the kind of fruit it produces. But the people living there are powerful, and their towns are large and fortified. We even saw giants there, the descendants of Anak. The Amalekites live in the Negev, and the Hittites, Jebusites, and Amorites live in the hill country. The Canaanites live along the coast of the Mediterranean Sea and along the Jordan Valley. But Caleb tried to quiet the people as they stood before Moses. Let's go at once to take the land, he said. We can certainly conquer it. But the other men who had explored the land with him disagreed. We can't go up against them. They're stronger than we are. So they spread this bad report about the land among the Israelites. The land we traveled through and explored will devour anyone who goes to live there. All the people we saw were huge. We even saw giants there, the descendants of Anak. Next to them, we felt like grasshoppers, and that's what they thought too. Okay, so this is really kind of a watershed moment, and we'll find out what happens next. But God sends the Israelites. He sends them in to scout scout out the promised land. Okay, so remember, this isn't just scouting out just in general any piece of property. This is the promised land. God promised the Israelites this land. This is the land I'm giving you. I'm going to drive out the inhabitants. I'm going to give you this land. It's a promise. Time and time again, God made promises to them, but even despite the promises that God had given them, they balked when it came time. They allowed fear to captivate their heart instead of faith. They looked at the negative instead of looking at the positive. When they went in, God tells them, look for the fruit. Look for the fruit. Focus on the fruit. And there's a big difference when we go forward in looking for the fruit of what God's doing and then looking for all of the negative things. And we have a choice in life. You can look for the fruit. You can look for what is God doing? Where is the fruit of God's hand? How do I follow him? How do I trust? What do I see? It's a difference between having a negative report and a positive report. It's a difference between having faith or being captivated by fear. And we get to do that every day in life. We can either be captivated by the negative, by the pessimism, by the cynicism of this world, or we can be captivated by faith, trusting God, God's promises that are there. And what we'll find here is that kind of tip the hand here and tell you what's going to happen. They focus in. They listen to the 10 spies instead of the 2. They listened to the 10 negative instead of the 2 that said, no, we should go take it. And this is really, it is a watershed moment for the Israelite people. And it's one that will actually plague them for years and years and years to come. So this is really kind of an incredible moment. But remember that in your own life. Listen, God's at work in your life. God's at work all around you. And we can choose to search for the fruit, or we can be captivated by fear. And that is true for all of us at every moment in our lives, because God is there. He's always been there. He's proved himself. He'll be there in the future. And it's what we decide that we're going to focus in on. And God would tell us, listen, look for the fruit. Look for the good stuff. Don't be captivated with the negative. Don't be captivated by these things that we'd call realism. Where God says, listen, I'm more real. I'm the one that's listen, you want realism? I'm the God of miracles. Is there anything too hard for me? That's what God would say to our realism. Okay, there are also some important things I just want to highlight real quickly before we finish up. One is, if you read through this portion of Scripture, there are tremendous leadership lessons for those who are called into any type of leadership, and we all have the opportunity to lead. For one, because leadership is influence. Okay, you don't even have to have a position to become a leader. You get to influence people. And will you influence them towards negativity or towards positivity? Will you influence people towards faith, or again towards fear? Will you become a negative person, or you move them towards a positive thing? Will you move towards righteousness, or will you move towards self-centeredness and sin? We get to influence people. We can become leaders. Now, it's incredible when you look here at some of the incredible leadership lessons. And if you backtrack here, even all the way, let's say, just kind of going backwards from here, from Numbers 13, we go back to Numbers chapter 12. And what happens there is Miriam and Aaron go and they complain. Now, what's interesting is this gives us some leadership lessons in regard to, what do we do in regard to leaders that are over us? Because there's typically always somebody who's a leader over us. It might be an employer. An employer. It might be, it might be a pastor. It might be an elder. It might be, if you're a teacher, it might be a principal. It might be, if you're a principal, it might be a superintendent. If you're a worker in a business, it might be the owner. It's just there. We all kind of have this chain of authority in the spiritual realm, especially in the things of God. What we find here is Moses had been given leadership by God. Moses was a faithful leader. He was a humble leader. But there was something along the way that Miriam and Aaron, they didn't like a decision that Moses made. In this case, it was a personal decision. It was a decision to marry a Cushite woman. We see some prejudice coming in here because they thought it was wrong for him to marry this woman. So they called into question his leadership, his God-ordained leadership. And just because they felt like, well, you know what? We don't like the decision he's made. We're going to question his leadership. And the way that they questioned his leadership was to say, well, you know what? We hear from God too. And that happens where people are like, you know what? What makes you so special? Yeah, I hear from God too. And that's definitely a step that we can take to cast off the leadership of somebody, instead of saying, well, no, this person is the leader and I'm going to trust them to be responsible in their leadership, and they are accountable to God and I'm accountable to them. And so they use that. Hasn't he spoken to us too? And I think that's a leadership lesson for us, to be very cautious about that. Most of the time in the Old Testament, when we find that, hasn't he spoken to us too? That's an attempt by someone to kind of elevate themselves above the leader. And it cost a lot here. Again, another leadership lesson is, what happens is God punishes Miriam for it. He says, hey, you've lost her perspective here. I meet with Moses face to face. There's other people. I might even, bless people with, being called as prophets, and I might speak to them, but I don't speak to them face to face like I do Moses. And he calls out their presumptuousness, and he calls them out, and it costs Miriam. He brings Miriam down a peg, and before he even heals her, he says, well, you know what? Make her at least stay outside the camp and have to eat some humility to hopefully get us, to where she doesn't do this ever again. Another leadership lesson when you go back again in Numbers chapter 11. Here we see, people starting to complain about Moses. Why? Because they're hungry. They're hungry for something different than manna. And one important lesson for us is it's really important to not be grateful. I mean, to not forget to be grateful. It actually really puts them into a place to where God has delivered them from Egypt, brought them out of Egypt, and has given them miraculously manna to eat every day, blessing of God. And they're eating it, and they start getting frustrated with the blessing of God. They're not satisfied with what they have. They want something more. And what's interesting is they want something more. Now, here's the lesson. They want something more so bad that they actually lose sight with how bad things were before. They begin to kind of really elevate, like, hey, we were free in Egypt, and it didn't cost us anything to have this free fish and, all these other foods, and, it doesn't cost us anything, and here we are, and wouldn't it be better to go back? They were slaves. They were subject to slave drivers. They were having to forced labor build cities for Pharaoh. They were mistreated, mishandled, crying out to God because of their hard labor they were in. Fast forward, they begin to build a straw man in their minds. It was better back there. That was actually good times. It was good. You see that, like, it was good back there. We had free fish. We had all of these. We had cucumbers and melons and leeks, and here all we ever see is this man. And they lost sight of the truth, all because they weren't satisfied with what God had given them. How easy it is for us to lose sight of the truth when we become ungrateful for what God has done and what He has given. There is something extremely important for us today to take stock of where we're at, what we have, because of God, and be satisfied in it. Because it could be that not too long after becoming dissatisfied, we follow in the footsteps of the Israelites, and we begin to actually yearn to go back to the place of bondage where we once lived in. That was way worse than where we are right now in the blessing of God. That shows you how much the greed, the coveting, the desire for more can overtake a person's heart and their sensibilities. And so, trust me, we are no different than what the Israelites were. And so that's an important lesson for us. Take stock of your life. Be grateful. And work to make sure that you are not overcome by this terrible spirit, this coveting spirit that loses sight of the blessing of God. Okay, I could point out so many other leadership lessons. Maybe when Moses chooses the 70 leaders, maybe you can point out some of the leadership lessons that you see in that section in Numbers 11, 16 through 30, where he chooses the 70 elders. I made marks in 3 different places where there were, 3 different leadership lessons that we learn in that. But these are all things that we get to learn from the Israelites and from this process. Okay, so love to hear your comments on any of the stuff that we've read. so far today, and God bless you. We'll see you tomorrow. Again, I hope you have a really incredible day.